Dementis. I rule the wasteland.
He took everything from me. My mother, my childhood.
Hey guys, Society Reviews here with my review of the film Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. It's been almost 10 years since Mad Max Fury Road was released in movie theaters, and there's still a polarized reaction to that movie. For some, Mad Max Fury Road is one of the greatest action movies of a generation, with so many memeable moments. However, there are some people after watching that film who ask the simple question, where was Max in a Mad Max movie? For years, people strongly defended the notion that Mad Max Fury Road was essentially a bait and switch for Mad Max fans to introduce the female character of Furiosa, who was the true protagonist of the movie. Years were spent gaslighting people into believing that they were crazy for thinking that Fury Road was all about replacing Max with Furiosa. Well, here we are almost 10 years later, and George Miller is back with another film that has nothing to do with Mad Max. Except this time, instead of bringing back Charlize Theron, who portrayed the character nearly a decade ago, this film is an origin story starring a much younger Anya Taylor Joy in a film where there's virtually no talking from our title character. Furiosa and Mad Max Saga begins with a young Furiosa and her sister Valkyrie living in their home that is subtly called the Green Place of Many Mothers. Furiosa's mother, Mary Jo, loses her life attempting to protect the existence of the Green Place from the warlord Dementis, played by Chris Hemsworth, and his biker horde. As the years progress, Dementis and the bikers attempt the uprising against the Citadel leader, Immortan Joe, and the War Boys. The battle between the two sides leads to a devastating assault on Dementis' army. Dementis demands food and water in exchange for not destroying Gastown, but Joe demands to take Furiosa as one of his wives in order to make the deal. Furiosa spends years in the wasteland disguising herself as a boy to prevent herself being sexually assaulted by Joe's son, but as she becomes a road warrior to protect the shipment of gasoline, she receives an opportunity to exact vengeance against Dementis for murdering her mother. One of the biggest knocks on Mad Max Fury Road was the fact that it was pure action and not much story. George Miller tried to defend that film by arguing that dialogue in the movie is overrated. As mentioned earlier, Anya Taylor Joy has roughly 30 lines of dialogue throughout the entire movie that hits nearly a 2.5-hour runtime. But just because her character doesn't speak doesn't mean there isn't interaction between other characters. What Furiosa does is try to correct the mistake of having too much action by focusing a little bit more on the story behind the rise of Furiosa as a character. The audience discovers how she ends up with Immortan Joe to begin with, the land that she came from, and the origin story behind her shaved head and missing arm. While there's certainly a toned-down approach to the action, there is far more character and story development, making this effort a polar opposite of Fury Road. That creative decision could turn off those who are looking for a high-octane action movie that matched the first one. Taylor Joy's presence in the film is not the selling point of the movie, despite her being the title character. Anya Taylor Joy doesn't even appear until nearly an hour into the runtime for this movie, and in a lot of ways she is outshined performance-wise by her younger counterpart, played by Alanya Brown. The man who does the heavy lifting for most of this film is Chris Hemsworth, playing the role of Dementis. The character is very withdrawn in his introduction, but as the story progresses, he becomes slightly more over the top. As the reality of a post-apocalyptic world begins to set, all the laws are thrown out of the window for the sake of survival and resources. The cinematography of this film matches the original by creating a barren wasteland that is visually stunning on screen, especially if you're watching on IMAX. It does more to add to the world building, even more so than the original movie. Although this film gets a lot right, you have to ask the question, will this satisfy casual moviegoers who are not enthralled with Fury Road nearly a decade ago? Much of the film is fan service to the 2015 movie, however, if you're an original Mad Max fan from the 1980s, you're once again going to receive a film that feels completely despondent from the 80s franchise that led us to this point in the first place. Furiosa certainly has elements to a story that is made for quote-unquote modern audiences. As its core, the film is about a group of women struggling to overcome a male-dominated society, and that message mirrors what we saw in Fury Road. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, is certainly a positive addition to the franchise for those who want to learn more about the Mad Max world without Mad Max. As condescending as that sounds, it doesn't take away from the fact that the film is a solid action adventure that does its job by pleasing its audience. I give this film a 3 out of 5.
I've got a fiendishly high pain threshold.
Magnificent.